8:30, it's time to talk politics with the co-leader of the Green Party, Russel Norman, joining us this morning. Good morning to you, Russell.
Good morning, Wammo.
Good morning. Now, was it interesting to find out about the poll the other day done by 3 News to find out what the top issues for New Zealand voters are? At the top was the natural environment and not the economy, as most politicians were thinking.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I actually was surprised myself, to be honest, because so many of the other polls have shown the economy and law and order and health and education above the environment, but that one put the environment top.
Yeah, because you were asked, and did you want to say the natural environment, but you thought you had to say the economy?
Well, I just thought that, based on previous polling, that's what it would be like, but it wasn't.
Yeah. And do you think is it just the RENA that it's brought this to people's attention, or is it more than that? Is it a deeper issue?
Well, I mean, I think the underlying thing is that New Zealanders do really care about the natural environment, but I think RENA has probably brought it more to the surface.
Does that change your tactics as we head towards the election? Are you going to perhaps now focus a little bit more and play to those fears about the natural environment?
No, I don't think so. I mean, our election campaign's been built around, green jobs, which is all about looking after the environment while getting jobs, and it's been built around cleaning up rivers. So it's had a pretty strong component of the natural environment in it already.
Okay, well, let's move on from that. Let's look at at asset sales, of course, which is a huge issue in this election. The government says that they're going to fund, some big projects like schools and infrastructure projects like roads and whatnot with funds from asset sales. Anything wrong with that thinking, do you think?
Yeah. Firstly, the assets are incredibly valuable. So we're getting 15 to 22% return on those assets, according to the government's own figures, because the government produces figures that look on return to the shareholder, which is us. The government says that either you have to sell assets or borrow. If they're the choices they're giving us in order to build new schools and hospitals. Then borrowing costs 4 to 6%, and selling the assets costs 15 to 22%. So it just doesn't make any economic sense to sell the assets.
But of course, they say though that they're, they are reinvesting these funds into other so-called assets. Are they not assets?
Well, if you think about it, if you think of if we're just talking capital, right? So there's three pots of capital. On the one hand, you've got the SOEs, one pot. Another pot is the schools and hospitals, those kind of assets. And then the third pot is debt, right? It's a negative kind of capital. So what National is saying is we're going to move some capital from SOEs into schools and hospitals. The alternative is to move capital from debt into schools and hospitals. The cost of moving capital out of the SOEs into schools and hospitals is about 15 to 22%. So the cost of debt is 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
It is absolutely economically irrational to fund it this way. I mean, normally, of course, we'd fund it from current income. That's what we used to do. We used to build assets out of current income, which is what we do. But if National's saying we're not willing to do that, we're only willing to do it by moving capital around, well, you wouldn't move capital out of the SOEs. They're fantastically profitable businesses. Okay.
Are you behind Labour's plan to raise the eligibility age for superannuation?
No, our policy is the status quo.
Why is that?
Well, we have actually discussed it at some length in the party, but when we'll discuss it more after the election, I'm sure. But we decided to stick with the status quo and focus on other issues. But we have said over and over, we actually think that there should be a debate around it. The Retirement Commission has made some strong arguments around it. So we're actually pleased Labor's raised the debate.
Do you think when you retire, super will still be around?
There'll be something, but there's no guarantees whether it will be universal, and there's no guarantees it'll be 65 and what level it'll be at.
Yeah. And where do you actually sit on the philosophy of retirement? I mean, it's kind of it's an odd sort of concept, really, isn't it? The thought, well, I'm going to stop working at this particular age. I guess maybe it makes sense for some people who are, who their bodies are giving out and they're doing sort of hard work. But I mean, do you see yourself ever retiring?
I honestly don't know, but I mean, I agree with you about retirement. I mean, and that's why it's important to think that the age of entitlement isn't the age of retirement. Right. There is no age of retirement in New Zealand.
Yeah.
You just become entitled to New Zealand super when you turn 65, but it's entirely up to you whether you continue working or not. and I think actually that's how it should be.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, the campaign is really underway. Have you released anything over the past 7 days since we last chatted that may have flown under the radar that you think people should know about?
Well, oh God. I mean, we've very much focused on getting kids out of poverty, creating green jobs, and cleaning up rivers. And so most of our package has been very focused on that. We'll be releasing more in the next few days around conservation, because we think we need to make some moves on conservation. That's probably the next major thing we're going to release.
Okay, excellent. All right, thanks very much, Russell.
Okay, cheers.
Russel Norman, co-leader of the Greens there on the election trail. It's now 18 minutes